Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to RCI TV for the
Abend zusammen.
final round
Bitte
of
nicht
the
erschrecken, hier ist Josse.
GT3
Ich
World
würde euch nur gerne
Championship, a
bitten, dass ihr
season which started with a 75-minute race at the fantastic Spa-Francorchamps now concludes with a 75-minute race around the Suzuka International Circuit. My name is Ryan Gill. I am your lead host for this evening. You've got Stewie behind the cameras and alongside me, just as he's been for the entire season so far. It's the one, the only, the Jesse Lee.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back for one more time here at RCI for the Friday GT3 World Championship. Ryan, it's great to be here for the finale, and just like they say, how things start shall be how they end, and we will bookend the season with some longer races here. And, well, elephant in the room, a little bit of moisture falling from the sky.
Yeah, it was slightly rainy at Spa for the start of the season, and the rain has returned for the end as well. Kind of appropriate, isn't it? But the track drying up slightly. We've got a green track out there at this point in time, and it was heavier on towards the start of the free practice session. But of course, we'll have to see how that shapes up for qualifying and the race. Of course, we have a 10-minute qualifying session here this evening and 75 minutes to decide our champion here for the top split in the GT3 World Championship. And Jesse, it can't get much closer than this. 5 points separate the two leaders here in this championship here tonight. It's George Boothby versus Jardier. And, I mean, it can't get much better than this, surely.
Well, this is what we do it for. We want race wins, and dramatic races are great. The only thing better than that is fantastic championship finishes, and we are going to get one of those today. So very close. One mistake, a slow pit stop, a wet racetrack, not having a handle on the car, anything can happen today that can upset this championship, and this is why we do it. And, well, I'm none the wiser personally. I think it's going to be pretty fantastic, though. Also, smaller grid here today for the finale, but that probably will not detract from the caliber of racing. It might actually add to it, and also the pressure, I would imagine.
Definitely so. And, well, of course, we do have a championship to decide here tonight, but there are still other points up for grabs for other drivers, and there are other positions around the championship standings to get decided. And of course, we will see those decided here this evening, live stewarding as well. We shouldn't have any post-race penalties, hopefully, crossing our fingers there. It's been quite well behaved over the last couple of rounds, and the stewards will be hoping for a nice, quiet evening tonight. We don't have too many cars on the grid, as he said, but of course, you only need 2 to make a race, and of course, we have 2 to decide a championship here tonight. George Boothby, in fact, is looking to wrap up 2 championships in the same week, Jesse. He just wrapped up split 1 of the British GT Championship in the GT3 class, and now looking to do so here on Friday as we wait for qualifying to tick over.
Yeah, we sure are. Final cars coming across to finish practice. Well, I don't like to talk about practice too much because every time I do it makes me look silly, and practice is not the big indicator of how well everyone's going to do. I look at Jardier down in the 9th place position. I don't think he will end up there in qualifying, and that is likely going to be just what I mean. Well, while we're here, we were talking about the points. We might as well get a good look at what they look like coming into the final round today at Suzuka. Ryan? Well, we're going to do that just a little bit later as everybody gets ready for qualifying to get underway. The car is going to be releasing from the pit lane, and we will be away. Nothing changed in the qualifying format today, even though the race is slightly longer. But there is nothing different. 10-minute session around a large Suzuka racetrack. You would not want to be the one to invalidate your lap or go off and have to reset here. You may get one mulligan here, I would say. But beside that, it takes a long old time to get around this track.
It is definitely one of the longer circuits that we have on the calendar, and of course in ACC in general. And of course, Suzuka will be returning for the next Friday Championship coming up. We'll have more details for all of you guys later on in the race about the next Friday Championship that's coming up. I will not be joining you in the commentary box for that one. We should have Mike Jones back in for weekly commentary. Mike Jones hasn't done weekly commentary for a long time, Jesse.
I know.
Now that I think about it, so it's going to be interesting to see Mike back in the commentary box. I should be out there racing, hopefully, but we'll stick to the present. And in the present, it is Milton Steele-Vassen that rounds through 130R, and now he will make his way through the Casio Triangle. He will be the first driver here tonight to start the qualifying session. So let's go on board then with the Aston Martin driver, the runner-up from the British GT Championship in the GT3 class. Across the line he goes, and there we go, down towards the aptly named first corner here at Suzuka. Brake just at the end of the pit exit line and cruise as much speed as you can through this corner. Get on the power early, maximize your exit, and then make your way down towards the Snake S's. Carry as much speed as you can through here. A lot of drivers prefer to carry third gear. Some of them shift down to second though. See Milton Steele-Vassen shifting down to second towards the end here, just to get better traction out as he comes up through the Dunlop curve now. Go wide, but make sure to not get yourself on the grass. It will invalidate your lap and unstabilize the car. Coming towards the first of the two Degners. Nice and aggressive on the first one. Want to be much smoother on the second one. A bit wide there on the exit of the second Degner, but is still on for a valid lap. Makes his way down towards the hairpin here at Suzuka. You hear a lot of drivers upping the TC in endurance races for this particular corner to save the tyres. Nothing doing out here in qualifying. Then up through 200R and towards Spoon Curve. This is going to be one of the most important parts of the circuit. You can lose or gain so much time. You can also invalidate your lap really easily here. Milton Steele-Vassen maximizing as much as he can on the exit of the first part of the corner and then the second part of the corner as well. Keeping the lap valid though. As he comes on to the back straight, you can see the testing pit lane just gone by there, and then up towards 130R, the most famous corner on the circuit. Completely flat in modern day Formula 1 cars, not quite flat in the modern GT3 cars. And then late on the brakes for the Casio Triangle, be as aggressive as you dare across the entry to both of the parts of the chicane, then be nice and early on the exit, wide line coming through the aptly named last curve, and then down towards the line. Here comes Milton Steele-Vassen. It will be a 201.6 for the Aston Martin, and Valentin Barrier will immediately go almost half a second quicker, but then Philippe Simard goes almost 7/10 quicker in the Aston Martin.
Quick stuff, and again, you're only going to get a couple of attempts at it, so might as well make it a good one. And any mistake here can bump you all the way down to outside the top 10 or worse. It's very important to get everything you can. Simard getting it done just a little bit over Cody Pride, but all of a sudden Fabian Piffet in there with less than a 10th difference between him and Philippe Simard. It is game on here, and just like I said, practice means nothing. Jardier to the top, a 2-minute 3.78, 1/10 quicker than Simard, and Jardier is going to come back into pit road. I imagine he's going to go back out and run one more lap, but right now, Jardier on provisional pole. Outstanding lap.
Jardier doing exactly what he needs to do at this point in time. The gap between himself and George Boothby, 5 points tonight coming into this round, and of course we'll have the full standings up for you guys later on in the program. It'll be just after qualifying, in fact. And Jardier, if he can get pole position, that will claw that gap in points down even further towards the start of this race. I think it'll claw the gap down to just 1 point as we'll be entering the race session. But Philippe Samard, he wants to do something about that, though. He wants to start on pole position for this race, and, well, you can't blame him. He's had a very, very successful season so far. Only picking up his first podium, though, at Donington Park just a week ago. But incredibly consistent results from this season. And he has definitely thrown himself up into the fight for the top 5 in the championship. Comes up towards the timing line now. And is up by an astronomical amount of time over the line. And it's 4 tenths clear. We're into the 59s.
Well, you kind of had to feel like that was coming. Immediate response by Jardier. He has left pit road. He's going to get 1 lap, I do believe. 1 timed lap as he runs up the back straight here, the S's, I should say. And what can Fabian Piffet do? He was he was provisional pole there for a few seconds. Where does he go with this lap? Goes to second, a 2-minute 3:21. Still 4 tenths slower thereabouts from Samard. Keeble comes across the line to improve to 8th, a 2:01.266. The quickest he has gone. He's going to continue. No resetting for him. Wouldn't do him any good anyway. As everybody continuing to pull in. Piffet second, Jardier down to third, Cody Pride in 4th place. Pride will not want that. What does Grant Willamont have in the 3:16? Bentley coming to the line, looking like an improvement, and it is going to be a big improvement. Top 10 for Grant Willamont provisionally, and I may have forgotten which line we were using, Ryan.
Well, Grant Willamont hadn't set a lap time at this point, and even bigger news flash alert for those of you that have not been paying too much attention to the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen. George Boothby does not have a lap time down on the board at this point in time. He would start 15th as things stand right now. We've seen George Boothby in the past come out and set a pole sitting lap time on his first timed lap. But I tell you what, he's going to have to pull out all the stops if he wants to do it on this occasion. He is on a valid lap at this point in time. And as I say that, runs slightly wide, but does seem to keep the lap valid. So this one is still going to count as far as I'm aware. And George Boothby, if he's realistically going to win the championship here tonight, if Jardier's not going to get pole, and it is going to be 5 points between them at the start of the race, he cannot afford to be starting down in 15th place.
Absolutely can. If you're going to challenge for this championship, if you want it, you have to dig deep. What is it going to be for George Boothby in the 666? Undoubtedly so. Will not start shotgun of this field, but just how far up can he go? He's going to get an additional lap. What will he get to do? That lap did not count. That invalidated one chance, one shot here for George Boothby. Otherwise, his championship road could be all the more harder with about 15 cars in front of him. Philippe Samard has called it quits, can do no better than a 59.937. That might still be good enough. He's in pit road. Everybody else other than Jordan Grant Smith is out there. Boothby and Karsten, the only two that haven't set a pit or set a lap. So what do you do if you're George Boothby? You gotta go, but you can't invalidate the lap. It's a catch-22.
Well, they say the very best drivers come out clutch when it matters. They do what they need to do to get themselves to the front of the field and in that championship winning position when it counts the most. George Boothby, he's won 2 championships around here at RCI. He's won a 24-hour race here at RCI in the World Tour for the Sidemax Motorworks team. He has the quality, he has the skill, he's got the pace, but he needs to do it over 1 lap. He needs to throw himself realistically onto the second row of the grid. Joe McCauley, by the way, has put the NSX provisionally on the front row of the grid. Just 0.2 of a second off of Philippe Samard's pole-sitting lap time. Philippe Samard's still the only driver in the 59s. And it looks like it's going to stay that way unless George Boothby, right here, right now, can throw down the lap of his life to put this car on the front row of the grid. And what a lap it would be. Here we go then into the Castillo Triangle. This is it for George Boothby. Has to count now. This has to be the one. If this is invalid, it's all going to be for naught. He may start at the back in 15th place, cuts it short, wants to run as close to the line as he can. Where is it going to be for George Boothby? Crosses the line. It will be 6th. And that's much better than 15th place, but immediately is pegged back by Steele Vasson and Valentin Barrier. Boothby down to 8th.
George Boothby down to 8th. I think pretty much everybody else, Willamont is going to come in and try and improve upon their time, but everybody else playing leapfrog. Boothby to 8th place right now. Jardier came across the line, re-slotted himself into 3rd place. Barrier up to the 4th place position. Still Vasson in 6th place. And Willamont will improve to 12th, but does not trouble the top 10. Boothby looks like he is going to be starting 8th place, and a huge swing here on Championship Friday between George Boothby. What on earth is he thinking right now?
Well, he's thinking to himself right now, I have quite a few cars I need to overtake, which ideally I wanted to start in front of. And, well, that's just the situation that George Boothby has found himself in. We wait for the cars to line up on the grid, and whilst we do that, we'll move into the championship standings. We did say that we'll show them to you here this evening, so here they are then. There it is. 5 points is the gap. George Boothby in the lead of the championship from Jaroslav Honzik. James Parker not here tonight, sits 3rd in the championship. His position likely to be overtaken by our pole sitter, Philippe Samard. Milton Steele Vasson in 5th place at this point in time. He'll be looking to finish ahead of James Parker in the championship as well. Alban Bouquet, I do not believe, is here this evening. Alexander Karsten sits 7th. Fabian Pither is 8th. Simon Keeble for the other MSVR racing team car is in 9th. And Herbert Frechel in the Honda NSX, rounding out the top 10, equal on points with Simon Keeble. Onto the second page, it's Hamza Belhassain that leads the way from Jordan Grantsmith. Get the hashtag BanJordies in the chat out. Level on points is Cody Pride and Ismail Lebrec, but Lebrec no longer in the championship. Grant Willamont only 1 point behind those two, though, and then it's Joe McCauley on 137 points. Still some serious places to be gained for the number 18 Honda. Darren King sitting on 115 points. Konstantin Soldatov on 107. Then it's Valentin Barrier and John Clements equal on points, 105 apiece for 19th and 20th. Then on to the third page, it's Christopher Verstappen, followed by Christopher Tavrayan. And then it's Juraj Fenchek, Loic Vanak, and Daniel Jose Jorges, rounding out the top 25. Jao Kavaka, Harry Conway, Billy Octane, Kieran Prendergast, and Dave van der Neet, all rounding out the top 30. But I think all of those drivers signed out of the championship, and then also signed out of the championship by now. It is Ivan Shematinsky. Azevedo is here this evening, but Christian Latta, Oscar Hull, and Adam Tompkins, as mentioned previously, are no longer in the championship. So, with just under 3 minutes until the season finale is underway, it is important that we do address some of the issues and, of course, some of the unfortunate happenings in the world at this point in time. And, well, Jesse Lee, take it away.
Well, it's unfortunate for the second time in a couple of weeks that we have unfortunate news and a memoriam to give. But as a lot of you may know, last week, sim racing lost one of its biggest personalities. William Marsh ran the YouTube channel by the name of Sim Racing Paddock. Will was a no-nonsense sim racing journalist who came from humble beginnings and ended up becoming one of the most trusted voices in sim racing. We mourn the loss of this personality and his voice that he had, and our hearts and our thoughts go out to the Marsh family. William Marsh passed in his sleep peacefully. He was 27.
Well, a community member unfortunately lost, but hopefully they will be looking down on the race this evening. And hopefully the 16 drivers on the grid tonight can put on a show that they will enjoy. We have a season finale to get underway here tonight. Philippe Simard on pole position then, alongside Joe McCauley on the front row of the grid. Jaroslav Honzik and Valentin Barrier on the second row. Fabian Piffet and Milton Steele-Vasson on the third row of the grid. Cody Pride and the championship leader George Boothby in 8th on the fourth row of the grid. Jordan Grant-Smith and Alexander Karsten on the 5th row, rounding out the top 10. Simon Keeble, Grant Willamot, João Cavaca, Christopher Tavrayan, Fabio Azevedo and Juraj Svenček round out a fairly small grid for the season finale here tonight. But I tell you what, Jesse, we've got some of the best ACC has to offer on the grid here this evening. And, well, I'm expecting a great race tonight.
Yeah, the grid being small here today doesn't really matter, in my opinion. It's unfortunate that it is 16 cars for the finale of the season, but it will be of little consequence. 5 points between the top two. Who's it going to be, Boothby or Jardier? Jardier coming with it. He will start in the third position. Boothby a little bit further back in 8th place. And Ryan, as we are on our pace lap now, if you're George Boothby and you know you typically have the speed, how do you safely get through this field tonight, knowing that the caliber of driver you're going to have to race against? Because, he can't win from 8th. He can't win from 8th. He has to come forward. What is your strategy to get to the front tonight?
I mean, to suggest he can't win from 8th is a bit ambitious. This is George Boothby we're talking about. It's one of the fastest guys in ACC. He could definitely win from 8th. Is it going to happen tonight? Probably not. And, the most important thing he has to do right here, right now, is finish ahead of Jardier. If he finishes ahead of Jardier, none of this matters. A fastest lap of the race is only worth 3 points here tonight. The deficit is 5 between Jardier and Boothby. So all Boothby has to do is finish ahead of Jaroslav Honzik. Easier said than done, though. I mean, Jardier, he's an absolute monster himself. He's been here before. He knows how to win a championship. He's won multiple championships in ACC across many different communities. And he's won quite a few endurance races as well. He knows the score. He knows what he needs to do tonight. And, George Boothby needs to get a good start, needs to jump Cody Pride on the start ideally, then wake his way through the grid. Maybe strategy plays a part here tonight. But I tell you what, it's going to be difficult. And it's going to be entertaining for sure. The British GT Championship concluded in fantastic style. We did not get the championship battle between the two contenders that we hoped we would have. Will we be redeemed here on Friday evening?
Well, I think we might just be. Everybody lining up 2 by 2. I would say, as far as the eye can see, but there's 16 of them. Casio Triangle, the hardest turn here to do side by side. You're going to be going down the front straight. 75 minutes this race, 1 hour 15, 10:08 a.m. Track is green, not rubbered in, and no threat of rain for the next 30 minutes. Only cloudy weather. Philippe Simard will lead Joe McCauley down to the start of the race. The flag man has the flag in his hand. The lights are still on as everybody waits in nervous anticipation for the green flag and the run down to tricky turn number 1.
Here we go then. The season finale for the GT3 World Championship is live, and it's a very, very good start from Joe McCauley on the outside line of the grid. It's not a bad start from Jardier on the inside either, though, and Joe McCauley round the outside of Philippe Simard will take the lead of the race at the first corner. Slight tap between the likes of Piffet and Valentin Barrier, but who is that I see? It's George Boothby, who's already made up 2 places after the first couple of corners.
Very dangerous stuff for George Boothby, but he's making up the spots, he's making up the time, and he's done it in grand fashion. A clean start. There were some bumper cars, some rush hour traffic stuff, but nobody left the racing service and nobody gave an inch, as you would expect with the pros. And everybody continues in a very long conga line as Jordan Grant Smith, back into the 8th place position, has trying to fend off Still Vason and the like behind, as even in the back of the pack, it's all going very well. It has to be said, we've made it through half a lap, calamity free, as Willamont attempting to make a pass, but up front, Macaulay leads Philippe Samard, change for the lead near the hairpin. Macaulay running away with it now, and Jardier trying to get around Philippe Samard, but Jardier has Piffet behind him, and we know how quick he was in practice and qualifying.
Joe Macaulay has 1 win to his name so far this season. How much he would love to add a second one to his name for this season. How much Philippe Samard would love to add a first win of the season in the final round of the championship to his name. Jardier, he also wants to add another race win to his name for this championship, but don't discount Piffet in the Lexus. The Lexus has been good this season, and of course he'll want to throw his car on the podium. And, ooh, is that Valentin Barrier just getting a bit out of shape coming through the chicane? Is this going to allow George Boothby to have a little bit of a look? It won't, no, not going to have a look down towards turn 1, but definitely allows himself to close back up. The pack still fairly close here, as Jordan Grant Smith looking to go defensive on Milton Steele-Vassen, who's been one of the losers on the first lap so far. But another loser, unfortunately, has been Cody Pride. He's down to 10th in the McLaren.
He's absolutely lost time, but these drivers here have gained time. Jordan Grant Smith doing his best job here after Boothby got through. He's defending for his life on Still Vassen and Keeble. Everybody line astern behind the Porsche now. And whenever they get to those long straightaways, everybody closes up on the 120 Porsche. Meanwhile, Simon Keeble is in the middle here. Aston in front of him and a McLaren behind him. The McLaren not really threatening so much, but that sort of cascade effect through the field with Jordan Grant Smith, it is catching everybody up right now. Look at them all get together, and look at Philippe Samard trying to go on the outside around the chicane. They've caught him, but can he do anything about Joe Macaulay, as everybody fighting for position? And if these two get side by side, Jardier is going to have a look.
Jardier will be interested, but he has to keep himself reserved. He has to think about the long game. He's ahead of Joe Macaulay, not Joe Macaulay, sorry, George Boothby at this point in time. And he needs to stay ahead of George Boothby at this point in time. If he can stay ahead of him, the championship potentially his. It all comes down to final finishing positions, but as it stands, Jardier would be the champion for the Friday Championship. But George Boothby, he's still got plans to do about that. Meanwhile, up at the front though, Joe Macaulay, he took the lead early on against Philippe Samard, but the Aston Martin is not going to let him have it that easily. And speaking of not letting people have it easily, Jordan Grant Smith isn't having it easy either, because Milton Steele-Vassen is up to racing speed and he wants that place back.
Well, he wants that place back, but Grant Smith is doing such a great job of outrunning him, getting into a straightaway off of a corner and blocking him down into the corner, that he just doesn't have quite what he needs in that Aston. If Milton Steele-Vassen was in that big bad Bentley, I think he might have something for the Porsche here. But then again, that would have its own issues with how wide that thing is. But of course, in an Aston, the MSV racing driver for this championship, and Grant Smith, we've seen him do excellent, completely legal and completely nonchalant defensive driving, and that's what he's doing here, and doing it very well indeed, as all of a sudden Jardier has fallen off the back of Samard, and that has brought Piffet back into it. Piffet will be aware of what the championship is, but of course he won't really care that much. He wants a podium spot.
Yeah, Fabian Piffet doesn't really care if Jardier's in for the run of the championship or not. He's just out to satisfy his own desires here tonight, and he's got his eyes on a podium at this point in time. George Boothby will be looking up the road. He'll be cheering on the Lexus at this point in time. He'll be hoping that Fabian Piffet can find his way past Jardier, because that only puts one car between the two championship leaders. However, It does seem like at different stages of the circuit, the Mercedes, the Lexus, and the Aston Martin show their strengths. Jardier just closing in slightly on Philippe Simard, but now the gap's starting to extend itself slightly. And Joe McCauley at this point in time, just looking up ahead, he's a bit like a cork in the bottle at this point. I think he's just slowing the 3 leaders up.
He might be, but I can tell you something. Boothby has caught Barrier for the 5th place position. But look at this, side by side between the two of them going into the Casio triangle, side by side. And did he did it? I think he did. Philippe Simard with the pass around the outside in the triangle.
Fantastic move from Philippe Simard around the outside, makes the inside his own. And that puts Joe McCauley under pressure now as we return to live pictures. Joe McCauley looking to try and take that place back. That puts him under pressure from Jardier, and now George Boothby's looking up ahead and saying, no, Joe McCauley, don't let him through. Don't let him up into 2nd place. That puts even more cars between me and Jardier. And at this point in time, I figured that Joe McCauley, he got ahead, but he might just be a bit of a cork in the bottle. I would not be surprised if Philippe Simard starts to pull a gap if Joe McCauley can keep Jardier behind.
I would not be surprised by that. Philippe Simard was so quick in qualifying, it could have just been tire temps or tire pressure and perhaps got jumped on the start a little bit. It's so easy to do when you're side by side on the initial start. Jardier trying to plot his additional move here, what he's going to do. Sideways there by Joe McCauley. Could that be the blood in the water Jardier needs down the inside? The inside's going to become the outside. It's going to be maybe a little bit of a touch, perhaps side-by-side action. He's not going to give up his Jardier, but that's going to leave him completely vulnerable to pivot behind. The cork in the bottle indeed, Joe McCauley in the 18, and everybody continues single file, but that could have been very nasty for Jardier. A pivot would have been able to get in there. Meanwhile, Boothby working on the top 5, still just behind this action as everybody catching up to the 2nd place team.
Joe McCauley, the cork in the bottle, absolutely loving this so far. I'm sure he's loving it as well because he's stirring the pot. Meanwhile, here's a replay. This is Grant Willamot and one of the Ferraris. Oh, no, that's a bad rejoin. Didn't send the Bentley around, though. Very fortunate there. And I think that was Azevedo in the 287 that collided
well
there
spotted.
with Willamot. Here is another replay here, and yep, this is how it happened. As such, Azevedo, very, very lucky to not turn Willamot around, and I think he might get away with a just a warning from the stewards on that one. Returning to the action up at the top, though, George Boothby weaving in the straights. He wants to get past Valentin Barrier, and he's going to let him know in style.
There it is, Valentin Barrier, the virtual drivers by TX3 Ferrari in the middle here. Got to be very careful in the middle because you get shuffled out here. You don't see this much in GT3 racing, but we do see it at places like Bathurst and Spa, where if you get shuffled out, you are going to the back of the queue, and that is very much a threat here at Suzuka as well. You got to be very mindful about your passing opportunities and possibilities, but Barrier trying to do everything to keep Boothby behind. Boothby cannot afford an ill-advised move, and he is not showing intent here. He is going to do what Boothby normally does, I assume, and wait for Barrier to make a mistake or something to happen in front and profit. Keep in mind, he doesn't technically, Boothby, need to beat Jardier here. As long as they're neck and neck, I think that might be enough to give it to Boothby. So while beating him is sort of the lock, being close to him is of utmost importance, and only a few cars between the two of them right now. And as Ryan said earlier, George Boothby becoming a Joe McCauley fan, trying to keep Jardier behind him because that's one less spot that he has to make up in points. And my goodness, I gotta say, it has been a crazy start to the race, a fairly clean one except that last sort of incident we saw between Willamot and Azevedo. And we haven't even had to mention that, of course, this final race, as always with the Friday Championship, live stewarded. We imagine we'll get something out of that contact between the 316 and the 287, as Azevedo is in pit road right now. And everybody still has to make a mandatory pit stop, Ryan. And well, one thing about that here today is a little bit more strategy than usual, a little bit longer race. Could we see a tire change, perhaps?
It'll be interesting to see if anyone does decide to go that way. I'm not entirely sure if they will. George Boothby not able to find a way past Valentin Barrier. But I tell you what, Jesse, I've been doing your favourite subject. I've been doing some maths, and I know you love this. So
I do indeed.
If Jardier finishes third and Boothby finishes fourth, Boothby will win the championship by half a point, assuming Jardier doesn't get the fastest lap.
Oh, dearie me. Well, we're here to do sim racing and motorsport, ladies and gentlemen at home, but we also are forced to do the math. And in this case, Ryan Gill has very, very eloquently done the math, I should say. Very well done. That's kind of what I came up with in my head, but I'm glad somebody actually wrote that down. So there it is. As long as Jardier does not get the fastest lap and get the half a point, that means if they finish side by side, Boothby or nose to tail, Boothby wins the championship. But like you said at the start, Ryan, it's just easier to visualize beating him on the track and winning the whole thing.
It is definitely easier because you don't have to do those points calculations in your head. So a lot of the drivers always say, "Oh, we don't think about it in the race." They definitely think about it in the race. There's no way you can block that out of your head when it's down to the championship, down to the wire, the final race of the season, especially when it's this close in the championship running. And well, as it stands, Jardier would be champion as the positions are right here, right now. 6th place is not good enough for George Boothby. He needs to be 4th if Jardier is going to remain 3rd. But I tell you what, I don't think Jardier is going to remain 3rd for the rest of this race. Half a second between himself and Joe McCauley. I kind of feel like that NSX cork in the bottle is going to disappear sooner rather than later. But speaking of disappearing, Simard is doing a disappearing act at this point in time. 2.5 second lead.
Yeah, I didn't know Philippe Simard was a magician, but here it is. Fell back on the start after perhaps getting a bit surprised by McCauley. And McCauley had a little bit of lead of his own, but Simard, when the tires came up to temp, he came alive and got that position around the outside in Casio Triangle. I've never seen that, but Philippe Simard, if somebody was going to do it, I am not surprised. It was him. McCauley continues to fall back. Jardier, I will say, from McCauley back, everybody is minding their own sort of manners here. I expected more moves, but it isn't happening. Look at everybody. Single file. And even when they do get close to not making a move, is this just careful driving or is this calculated?
It might be a bit of both at this point in time. A few of these guys obviously have nothing to lose, and some of them have everything to lose at this point in time. I mean, Joe McCauley has nothing to lose at this stage in the championship. He's just driving for himself. But Jardier, he's got everything to lose. If he spins out here tonight, that could be end of the championship hunt for him, you know, really early on. So he needs to be careful. Fabian Piffert, I mean, he's still potentially in the run for a top 5 spot in the championship, I believe. So, you know, he's got to keep himself, you know, relatively reserved if he wants to get that top 5 spot. Valentin Barrier's not really racing for any significant places in the championship, so he can go a bit ham here tonight. Then you've got George Boothby, who is fighting for the championship. Milton Steele-Vason's looking for a potential top 3 in the championship. Jordan Grant-Smith, I don't think, is fighting for a top 10 place or a top 5 place at all. So he can go a bit wild tonight if he feels like it. So that, you know, there's different consequence levels for mistakes throughout the field tonight, and you know, maybe that is just playing into the carefulness that some of these guys are having, where they would usually be sending moves up the inside and, you know, maybe thinking that you know, valor is the better side of caution. But in this case, everyone keeping it rather calm at this point in time. And by the way, we have had the verdict on that Azevedo Willamette incident. Racing incident is the verdict from the stewards. I think that's fair enough.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's fair enough. If they've reviewed that and said, he was in the grass, he was trying to stop, and, you know, mistakes happen, incidents happen, a little touch like that sends a car off, and, well, at that point, you're not really controlling the car because you can't, because the grass won't let you. But perhaps more interestingly, other than the racing incident between Azevedo and Willamette, is the warning for Boothby's 666 car. That cascade effect, that bumper cars I talked about in the S's on the first lap in turn 3, that was between the 72, the 666, and the 962. They gave Boothby a warning for that, for the driving. Should be more aware of lower speeds, as lap 1 is what Daniel has written down. The warning issued to Boothby there, so he's going to have to mind himself in the rest of this race because of that.
I wonder if
very interesting.
I wonder if there were some slight contacts between George Boothby, Valentin Barrier, and Milton
Well, there
Steele.
was. So, there was, Ryan, because they sort of
Barrier's made
jostled.
a mistake.
Oh, he has done.
And here comes George Boothby. He's going to be on the inside, coming through the final corner, and George Boothby's done it. He's got ahead of Valentin Barrier into the top 5.
Let's
here we
see
go.
what happened.
Just missed his brakes, I think. Valentin Barrier.
Oh, yeah.
Wide, has to cut back across to avoid getting a track warning, and thinks, you know what, I'm not going to risk getting involved with the stewards if I accidentally come back across dangerously. And look at this, it's costing Valentin Barrier even more. Here's Milton Steele-Vasson on the outside, will turn. He's
not giving up
to the inside, but look at Valentin Barrier, the drive from the Ferrari, incredible, and defends his place.
Well, what I'm going to say about Valentin Barrier is excellent driving to miss your braking point in the triangle, save it, not get a track limits penalty, and still give way to the right. Well done, and another excellent defense through the S's by Barrier to not hemorrhage positions. It's exactly what I was talking about earlier in the race. You cannot get out of line, make a mistake, and expect to be able to jump back in, because everybody will be going faster than you, and that will cause issues if you don't get back in line. Barrier fights for his right to stay 6th. He gets it. Boothby up to 5th, and meanwhile, up in front of Boothby, Jardier and Piffet are going at it here, as it looks like McCauley has put himself just at the smallest of gaps now.
Yeah, McCauley has got himself a tiny bit of a gap, and I think that's mostly because Fabian Piffet has started to, you know, cling on to the back of that Mercedes at this point in time. It's putting Jardier under a bit of pressure. And George Boothby will be looking up the road. It's a 1.6 second gap, roughly, between himself and Fabian Piffet. And he'll be saying, yes, come on, Lexus, I need you to get past. Because, remember, folks, as things stand, George Boothby will lose the championship lead. Jardier will be champion as it stands. If George Boothby can work his way up to 4th and they finish as they are, then it would be George Boothby winning the championship by 1 point, assuming Jardier doesn't get the fastest lap of the race. I don't think Jardier is going to get the fastest lap of the race, because Philippe Samard is 4.6 seconds up the road from Joe McCauley and doing an absolutely fantastic job at this point in time. In fact, I've just had a look. Yes, Philippe Samard is the only driver in the 2:00 mark. So not in the 2:01s, not in the 2:02s. He's in the 2-minute flat area at this point in time for lap time. So Philippe Samard would be taking the fastest lap of the race. George Boothby, he's eyeing that top 4. He needs to get in that top 4, or he needs to hope that Fabian Piffet can overtake Jardier and demote Jardier down into 4th place.
Well, if anybody other than Philippe Samard has the quickest lap today, you will color me impressed and surprised, because Samard is trucking. He's 5 seconds ahead of McCauley, but this is the state of the battle for 2nd place. Jardier getting closer to McCauley, and Piffet getting closer to Jardier. And oh, by the way, don't forget about the man that you will see. There it is, the red and yellow Ferrari in the background. That is George Boothby, warned earlier for I guess it's sort of unaware driving, I guess is what that penalty was sort of for, as we see Piffet get off into the dirt there a little bit. All normal ACC rules apply, folks. You cannot get more than 3 track limits warnings. Otherwise, that will result in a drive-through penalty, and that is, well, quite frankly, going to take you completely out of the race today.
Well, Christopher Trevelyan has decided to serve his mandatory pit stop today. Very, very early on in the race, the number 59 has come in. He's served that mandatory pit stop. Azevedo is a few laps down at this point in time, but he is still going on. Credit to him, has not served his mandatory pit stop at this point in time, and the 107 and the 316 are quite a way off the rest of the pack at this point in time. So, as things stand then, Philippe Samard leads by 5.1 seconds from Joe McCauley in second place, and Jaroslav Honzik just 0.3 of a second back. Fabian Piffert and George Boothby rounding out the top 5. Valentin Barrier, Minton Steele-Vassen, Jordan Grantsmith, Simon Keeble, and Cody Pride rounding out your top 10. And of course, Karsten Kavaka, Svenchek, Willamot Trevelyan, and Azevedo, the rest of the field. Jesse, we're over 20 minutes into this race, or almost 20 minutes into this race, I should say. I mean, at this point in time then, George Boothby, I guess, 1.2 seconds off of Fabian Piffert. He's catching the Lexus at this point in time. He is closing down the gap. He's got himself focused. Does he need to make a move on the Lexus at the earliest possibility? Or do you think he can still, you know, keep himself reserved and maybe try and make up that place in the pit stops?
Yeah, he can make it up at any time, Ryan. If he catches the back of this field and doesn't pit, I will be surprised. This is your leader, Philippe Samard, for Egg Motorsports in the 42 Aston. He's going well. He's nearly 6 seconds up. He's not a factor. He's also got the fastest lap, and I don't expect anybody to eclipse this man's record today. The battle going on very clearly behind them, though. I have to say, I feel like Jardier is ailing ever so slightly, and Boothby is not. He's catching by a tenth or more every single sector, and while they are all fighting each other, Boothby's catching up, and you don't want to force something and make a mistake. So if I was Boothby, yes, he can wait all he wants. I think he's got that Ferrari dialed in for the cloudy weather and the racetrack. Keep in mind, the track not optimum, folks. It started green because we had rain in practice. It was dry in qualifying, but it was still green. And now it is fast, and it will likely, before today's race is over with, go back to optimum. So grip is increasing all the time. And I just think the track suits the 666 of Boothby more than it does anybody else. And I think what's going to happen here, or what I would do anyway, is I would catch up to the back of this train and pit at my earliest convenience and hope to jump them, is what I would typically do. And folks at home, if you are hearing those alarming sounds coming through your speakers or your headsets, just know that we hear them too. We are not doing them. We do not have a silly sound effects guy here. But it is ACC itself that is doing that. And we do apologize if that is distressing at all to you. And we're working.
I had it in a league race once. It was terrifying.
Yeah, I had it. I was racing Spa once, and it threw me off the track very nearly. I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard it up until that point. But if you do hear that at home, we do sincerely apologize. It is not anything of our making. And I wanted to talk about Alexander Karsten just for a moment. Keep in mind, Karsten started 16th, didn't he? I think he started dead last on the field, and now he's up to 11th. Unless he got a late qualifying run in, he was 16th the last time I checked. But Karsten, one of the drivers that will benefit from some of the other teams not being here today, but he is very much in the fight for 10th place. That's Cody Pride in front of him and Keeble in front of him. And all of these guys fighting for 9th place, but just getting inside the top 10 for Karsten, that is going to be mission number 1.
If you want to add some immersion to the broadcast here tonight, you could always treat those gunshots as George Boothby trying to get a puncture on Jardier's tyres here this evening, and going for the alternative strategy of getting your opponent a puncture, and got a little bit of an aiming sight on the front of that Ferrari, perhaps.
Oh,
but
dear.
no, I kid. It's George Boothby would never.
Welcome to RCI presents the Hunger Games.
Well, it might be at this point in time. But George Boothby doing a fantastic job at this point in time, closing down on Fabian Piffert, 9/10 of a second. In fact, it's even less than that now, 7.5 tenths of a second. He's closed down 3/4 of a second over the last 3 laps of the race to Fabian Piffet, the Ferrari, on a charge at this point in time.
Oh, he's
and
there.
Jardier is going to have to get a move on.
I just think you got to pit, Ryan. If you're Boothby, you got to pit here. I know it's not quite halfway. You'd like to wait another 10 minutes or so. I don't think it's going to matter too much. If I was him, I would come into pit. You know, at bare minimum, 30 minutes from now, it's not going to be raining. And if that's what you're worried about, which everybody should be based on the weather we've had this weekend, at least now you kind of know. And you kind of know what the track was like when it was raining and it wasn't terrible and you could still use slicks. So if that is what Boothby's worried about, if that's what he's thinking about, if he's trying to have all of the strategy in the basket, I think now, because at the rate that he's caught Piffet, this is the strategy to pit right now. Or, and this is what we have seen Boothby do before, he could just pass them and it doesn't matter.
Interestingly enough, Jesse, we were wrong on our initial assessment of the incident between, I believe it was Azevedo and Willamot. We were given the verdict for the incident with Azevedo and Willamot on lap 1.
Oh.
We've now been given the verdict for the incident that happened on lap 4, I believe it was, down at the hairpin. 15-second penalty for Azevedo for an unsafe rejoin.
Well, yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but from my time as a steward, unsafe rejoins are not viewed very lightly, and to get off with a racing incident would have been mega. That would have been like winning the lottery. But there you have it. That's more like it for Azevedo, and it's unfortunate because it's contact and it comes to that. But the rejoin deemed out of order there, and they will have to either deal with that in the pit lane, the 15-second penalty, or they can just have it added on to the end of their race time. He doesn't have to come in any number of laps, or indeed serve it. It'll just be added on if he so chooses. Well, the battle here continues. This is 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Jardier, Piffet, and Boothby now. If Boothby gets around Piffet, that Lexus right there, he will be the championship leader by, get this, folks at home, half a point. Unbelievable.
Imagine being Piffet at this point in time. You're the difference at this stage between one person winning the championship or another person winning the championship. Whatever you do at this point in time could dictate 8 weeks, 9 weeks even, because we had a break week. You know, whatever you do, whether you overtake Jardier or get overtaken by George Boothby, whatever you do will massively alter the championship.
Oh, there it is! There it is!
Into the pit lane. We did get a bit of a report from Papa Boothby that he'd be coming in within the next couple of laps, and here he is. So George Boothby catches the traffic and decides, you know what? I'm going to go for the George Smith strategy, which is to come into the pit lane and not make sure that I get held up by the cars in front. I'm going to serve my mandatory pit stop and make sure that I come out in some nice clean air so that I can undercut the cars ahead. And this is a fantastic strategy, and it could well work in George Boothby's favour. But the reality of the situation for Jaroslav Honzik and Fabian Piffet is that they need to react now. George Boothby was lapping quicker than them, and if they want to stay ahead of him on track, they have to pit this lap.
You're absolutely right, Ryan. They don't have a choice. The strategy for them has also been made. What do you do? Do you continue to rage against the dying of the light out on the racetrack, or do you come in as Piffet getting all sorts of sideways there, coming through the Degners, trying to get any sort of position he possibly can on Jardier to no avail, and meanwhile give a call to that man in the purple and black NSX. Joe McCauley has now driven away from Jardier by a second or so. So that early defending by McCauley is paying dividends now. 2nd place, his position firmly so. Jardier looking like he's on the struggle bus all of a sudden.
Jardier definitely under pressure at this point in time, and now he's got to think about the fact that George Boothby has come in to do his pit stop. Jardier at this point in time, if he wants to race George Boothby on the track, if he wants to have a chance here, coming out ahead of the Ferrari. He has to pit this lap. I just don't see Jardier being ahead if he stays out for another 4-5 laps at this stage in the race. Fabian Pivet, he just wants to get past Jardier at this point. He couldn't care less. And here we go. It is Jardier coming into the pit lane.
Smart.
I did say he had to react now. You called it right, Jesse. His strategy decided for him. And the interesting thing is now, has George Boothby gained enough time with clean air to decide this in the pit stops? Or is Jardier going to come out just ahead and we're going to be promised the battle that we've so dearly wanted to see?
Well, I can tell you, Steve Cleaver in chat, he must be in Jardier's stream, and he says the problem is Jardier started off with the wrong tire pressures for the weather conditions and increased the pressure instead of reducing it. And that has caused him to have a sort of slidey and unpredictable first half of the race. He is bleeding speed with Jardier. He might have a chance here to change tires. I don't know if he will. There's not a whole lot else you can do. Yeah, but I think you're right, Ryan. He has to. If he has the wrong tire pressure in, he has to waste the time to put the tires on the car. And indeed, I think he is doing that. Well, here comes George Boothby.
There's a mandatory tyre swap required for every driver here tonight, so he'd have to change tyres whether he wanted to or not.
Yes,
but
that's
here
right.
we go then. Here comes George Boothby. Jardier is out in front, and it's not much. And I reckon if it had been another lap or two, George Boothby would have come out ahead of Jardier. But Jardier had to react. He had to get those tyre pressures sorted. And he had to come out ahead of George Boothby. He's done exactly that. But my word, there's not much space between them now. And I tell you what, Jesse, you could probably just about fit a Lexus between those two.
You probably could, right up until the point where they're taking this carousel into the Degners, and that is just about all there is in it, folks. This is for provisional third place and also the championship, half a point between them. Boothby has it, and now Jardier needs to set the quickest lap of the race to go ahead and nullify that, and that would end in a tie, and, well, we would have to go back to finishes to figure out who would win in that case. Well, there it is, and we talked about it early. Ryan, you absolutely nailed it. You said the easiest thing for Boothby to do today is just beat Jardier. Well, qualifying didn't work out for Boothby, for the Sidemax Motorworks driver, but it hasn't mattered. He's come through the field, and he's right behind the man that he doesn't necessarily have to beat, but for safety reasons should consider beating. And what of Jardier's tires? Perhaps he's fixed them. We'll try and follow up with that and see if that is the case. But holy cow, what an incredible race it has been so far. Coming up on the halfway point, and, well, only thing I know is Philippe Samard is very quick, but everybody behind them, it is very crazy indeed. And what of Joe McCauley? What is he going to do? McCauley and Piffett have not pitted yet. Do you think that both Jardier and Boothby could jump them now? Because I don't think that's the right strategy they're on.
It's a very, very good point. 2.5 points, by the way, is what the current gap would be. George Boothby would win the championship by 2.5 points to Jardier at this stage, as things stand. Of course, they're not going to remain 9th and 10th for the rest of the race, or at least I would hope not. And, they will climb themselves a bit further up the order as pit stops start to come out for everyone. And, well, in fact, they're up to 8th and 9th at this stage right now. But, yeah, I mean, Fabian Piffett and Joe McCauley, I don't necessarily think staying out is the best decision for them. I mean, if I was them, I'd want to get this pit stop done. I think at this stage, Fabian Piffett, unless he was being held up enormously by Jardier at that stage, which could be possible. It could very well be that he was being held up. You know, I'm not sure if Fabian Piffett comes out ahead of Jardier.
Well, Piffett has picked up the pace, perhaps with the track getting faster, perhaps because he's not behind. Jardier, he is in the 2-minute bracket now, the 2-minute knots, and he is flying as well. So maybe it is to Piffitt's sort of advantage to not pit. Maybe it's for Macaulay as well, because I had forgotten. Macaulay was pulling away from Jardier on those bad tires, or on those tires with the wrong pressure. We assume he's rectified that. Absolute madman if he did not, but based on his pace now and starting to leg Boothby a little bit, I think he has rectified that problem. So is this race over yet? If I'm Philippe Simard, am I starting to get a little bit worried myself that Jardier has a little more pace? Look at that lap time. Jardier, 2-minute dead, 0.447, the fastest lap of the race. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a championship tie.
Well, what a swing at this point in time. Jardier, fastest lap of the race. That means that if things stay the way they are in 8th and 9th, and Jardier has fastest lap, then that means Jardier wins the championship by half a point. So, what was in George Boothby's favour, potentially by half a point, then 2.5 points, now in Jardier's favour.
That's right, because it's worth a full point, isn't it?
Point. And absolutely unbelievable. And unbelievable is Cody Pride. Drive-through penalty. That's for track limits.
Indeed.
And well, his day not getting much better.
You saw Cody Pride in the background. That's the black and gold McLaren, and I think there was a wiggle of the wheel, not because they were losing traction, but out of sheer frustration that happened. But we talked about that at the top of the show too. It's going to be a big problem here. It's very easy. It's one of the easier tracks, in my opinion, to get a penalty like that. And well, here we are, just about halfway into the race, and the first driver getting a penalty, Cody Pride, done for speeding, as Joe Macaulay in to pit road. Now, this is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be interesting to see Joe Macaulay into the pit lane. Obviously sits P6 at this point in time, but will he come out ahead of Jardier at this stage in the race? Like you said, he was pulling away from Jardier. He was ahead.
Oh, it's going to be close.
He's rolling at this point in time. Here comes Jardier, and he's going to be ahead. Jardier is going to be ahead, and so is Boothby. It was the wrong call for Joe Macaulay to stay out. And I tell you what, if it's the wrong call for Joe Macaulay to stay out, it's going to be the wrong call for Fabian Piffet as well.
Well, now, especially, I talked about, documented how Piffet was running 2-minute deads. Well, now so is this man, Jaroslav Hanzik. He's running 2 deads now. Just did it again, a 2-minute .303, I think, was his lap that time by. That's the new quickest lap as he continues to reset fast lap and gap Boothby. Nearly 2 seconds to gap now to the 666 Ferrari. And it's all of a sudden, it's all coming up Jardier. All of a sudden, well, what can Piffet do? Can Piffet keep them behind? Because this could very easily become a battle for second place. And even with Boothby falling back a bit, that could still be third place for Boothby coming out of the top 5.
Everything's still to change at this point in time. We have just over 36 minutes of this race still to play. And,
oh, dear.
Oh.
Well, I don't think the rain will factor in much because it'll only be raining for about 6 minutes.
Oh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we were robbed of a change of weather in the British GT Championship finale. We were robbed of a championship battle in the season finale for British GT. I did say, are we going to be robbed of it here tonight? Doesn't look like it. And the weather's come out to play as well. We're going to have 6 minutes of the race remaining when the weather arrives. And
decisions.
Word. Well, let's face it, Jesse. 30 minutes later on in this race, this entire dynamic could be thrown out of the window. Philippe Simard, by the way, he's just minding his own business at this point in time. Out in front, he's gonna lap some cars in a minute.
That's Grant Willamont and Cody Pride, I think, in front of him, and they are not racing for position, folks. This is the back of the field.
Oh, they are racing for position.
Well, I mean, Philippe Samard's not racing them for position, is what I mean to say. Cody Pride and Grant Willamont very astutely are indeed racing for the 14th position. Grant Willamont's going to adhere and heed the flashing lights of the race leader, get out of the way, and he'll be hoping that, well, I let you go. Hopefully, Cody Pride does the same thing and you slow him up just as much, if not more, than I did to let you through. Fabian Piffett, Team Fordzilla, bam, the 194 Lexus doesn't come in this time by. I think they're in it for the long haul. I'm not sure you're going to see this team in until the last possible second. Check the lap time this time by. Oh, it's going to be a 2-minute 1.173. That's not good enough. And I am going to very quickly do the math.
Jardier did a
Yes.
2:0.6 on the previous lap. That would be half a second quicker.
Jardier's already, as they run, they're not, but after a standard pit stop for the 195 with standard service, Jardier and Boothby at this time will already have passed the 195 in pit lane. And that's just the long and the short of it. It is not working out for Piffett. Piffett doesn't care. Piffett's going to stay out as long as he possibly can. Maybe catch the weather here as Cody Pride continuing to fight here. And he's got Svinček in front of him now, does Pride. Sandwiched between two Bentley, Svinček in front, Willamont behind, and Philippe Samard getting around all of the way out in front of this race. But let's talk about the weather coming in 30 minutes. It's going to be light rain. Will it be enough to change the dynamic of this track? I don't know, but it might make some people activate some very sneaky strategy.
The big thing to consider is it depends on how hard the rain is going to come down. It only looks like light rain at this stage right now. But of course, we don't know how that will affect all of these guys. And most importantly, mistakes. I mean, when the weather comes down, it starts to rain, the track gets a bit wet. Mistakes are going to be crucial. And it could possibly be that one of the championship contenders makes some mistakes, spins out, and that is it. Championship over. And well, I mean, if there was ever a more disappointing way to end your championship, I can't think of a worse one than 6 minutes left of the race. The rain hits, you make a mistake, you're in the wall, and it's 9 weeks of work just gone down the drain in the blink of an eye. Philippe Samard, though, he's coming into the pit lane, and he's decided that he's going to take his mandatory pit stop, get his change of tyres done, and he's going to have about 31 minutes on a nice new fresh of tyres that I'm sure he's going to absolutely love draining the life out of, and maybe keep some in reserve just in case the weather does come. So he's got some nice, you know, not too worn out tyres come the end of the race.
But you and I both know, Ryan, that 10 minutes on a racetrack on tires makes a big difference in ACC. And I am, of course, talking in reference to Jardier, Boothby, and them. 10 minutes or so since they have pitted, and Philippe Samard's tires are going to be newer, fresher, meaning he's going to have a little extra traction at the end of this race. And here comes Samard out of pit road already in turn one is the 42. And Fabian Piffett is scored as the leader now, the 195 leading laps. I think I read somewhere recently that Piffett said something about just leading a lap or so, or maybe that wasn't Piffett, but I kind of agree with that sentiment, though. It's like being close enough to lead, and leading when others pit is still leading. And I totally agree with that statement. But we
Provisional
are
leader.
Yeah, exactly. You get scored as a lap leader. Yeah, exactly. You get scored as a lap leader, and that makes you feel a bit better. And indeed, it is going to be Piffett, the only driver out here for the long haul. Azevedo is in 15th place. He has not pitted. Well, he did pit earlier, but did not take tires. And he sat there for several laps. I wonder if he actually towed, now that I think about it. But Azevedo, the final driver, has not pitted. And look at Fabian Piffett proving me wrong. Not in it for the long haul at all. Coming down pit road. Such a wide and lonely feeling, this pit road at Suzuka.
Give us a little flash of the lights as he goes along. and into his pit box. And, well, now we're going to find out where Fabian Piffet comes out in all of this. 30 minutes to go until the end of the season. It's been 8 weeks of racing. We've had 1 break week, so technically 9 weeks overall, because we had that little dropout week for the 24 hours of Kyalami. And something I've noticed, Jesse, that has me a bit concerned for George Boothby.
Is it the purple NSX?
It's Joe McCauley's purple NSX, which is catching the Ferrari at a rate of knots. And, well, would you look at that? Joe McCauley, he's just set a 2:0.1 on his previous lap. I think that it is the fastest lap of the race. So Joe McCauley, and he's just gone quicker. He's almost into the 159s on race fuel at this point in time. Joe McCauley, he's absolutely gunning it. He's come out ahead of Fabian Piffet at this point in time, and that NSX has pace, and that has got to be worrying George Boothby.
Well, it's worrying him even more, because if he has the fastest lap of the race, that means Boothby is currently winning the championship again by a half of a point, and he has to stay in the 4th place position to win the championship, so he cannot be passed by the Honda behind him. Oh no, another fate twist with less than 30 minutes to go in the race. Rain coming, you can't give up this position. We're about to figure out how wide the Sidemax Motorworks 666 Ferrari can possibly be.
So if you've just joined us, by the way, because we've seen quite a few of you coming in just now at this point in time, good evening, welcome to the race. You've missed a cracking amount of action so far at this point in time, but let's set the scene for you. George Boothby, championship leader, is currently 3rd. Jardier is currently 2nd. He's trying to win the championship here tonight, trying to take it away from George Boothby. As it stands, Boothby is half a point ahead of Jaroslav Honzik. He's winning the championship at this point in time. If Jardier snatches the fastest lap of the race back, Jardier is going to win the championship. If George Boothby gets overtaken by Joe McCauley and Jardier finishes 2nd, Jardier has won the championship. Everything at this point in time is depending on George Boothby's actions. It's all falling into Jardier's hands, but currently, it's not Jardier that leads the championship, but Jardier is going to be supporting Joe McCauley with all the energy.
Look at this, super defensive.
And here we go then. This could be a championship deciding move. The NSX on the inside. Is Joe McCauley up into 3rd place? Yes, he is. The NSX up into the top 3. And the championship swings back in Jardier's favor. It's now the number 39 that provisionally is the championship leader.
Well, in the span of 3 laps, for those of you keeping track at home, in the span of 3 laps, we have had 3 different championship lead changes, I should say, between 2 different drivers, and the pendulum swings in favor of the 39 AMG, and Fabian Piffet is not willing to sit behind Boothby either, because Piffet was one of the faster cars earlier, and we will see if he can maintain that. Piffet does not want to be back in 5th place. And in fact, a little bump there on Boothby going down into the hairpin.
George Boothby at this point in time, he'll be praying that Joe McCauley is going to do what Joe McCauley does and not really care about anyone else's race, go up ahead and catch Jardier and overtake him. A bit further back, João Cavaca is... Oh, he's just made an overtake by the looks of it. Here we go, up on the inside, and this is on Simon Keeble. I would think very nicely done by João Cavaca at this point in time. But has he possibly lost it again? No.
Oh,
João Cavaca.
Self-preservation by Tavrayan there. Oh, not by Tavrayan. Excuse me. That's by Keeble. Simon Keeble had to get out of the throttle to keep from rear-ending the sliding car. Oh no, George Boothby's off!
Oh no, George Boothby! Oh, so what is this? Is this assisted, or is this all on his own?
No, it isn't.
All on his own!
How many times in 130R have we seen that mistake happen? We haven't seen it today, but when George Boothby could ill advise doing that himself, it comes to bite him, trying to make lap time, trying to get into this championship, trying to fight tooth and nail to have a shot to win it. And Ryan, we talked about it. You cannot make mistakes if you're a championship contender. And George Boothby goes for a spin in 130R, and it will be a long road back for him today as it's all going dark for him. Meanwhile, Kavaka and Keeble continue to fight for the 9th place position. It's all kicking off in the final minutes of this championship today.
I would say that George Boothby's hopes of winning the championship are now gone, but there's rain coming in the final few minutes of the race. There's always the chance Jardier could make a mistake. It doesn't happen often, and he's usually very, very good at, keeping those mistakes locked away for when it doesn't really matter and making it count when it does matter. But there's always the chance that something can happen. George Boothby, he's just made a mistake. He unfortunately had a bit of contact with Fabian Piffet when the Lexus ran into the back of him, possibly damaged the back end of that car. But he's got to believe, Jesse, he's got to believe that there is still a chance he can win this championship here tonight. Because if you don't believe in the first place when it's impossible, you're never going to believe when it's more than possible. He has to hope that Jardier makes a mistake later on in this race and that he can get right up behind him.
Tavrayan has been given a drive-through penalty for track limits. That is an ACC assigned penalty, and I agree with you. And folks, why are commentators so excited all the time? It's not fake hype. It's because we are genuinely interested in racing. We love motorsport, and you couldn't hear it, but there was an audible groan when Boothby lost it there. That is how invested everybody in the booth is with this race and this championship battle. What happened between Keeble here? Anything? Is it going to be a move to the inside? It's going to be a dive bomb move into the triangle. Does that come off? He's going to be forced to allow that to come off. No room. And all of a sudden, Keeble back in front of Kavaka.
I don't think the stewards are going to like that too much. And, they're probably going to be having a look at that one and say, was that a bit too far back for a dive bomb move? But anyway, it seems that some of the updates that we've got from our producers here, Jardier on 0 track limit warnings, George Boothby on 3 track limit warnings. So George Boothby possibly on the verge of a drive-through penalty for track limits. He cannot afford another track limit. Oh, and there we go. I've done it, haven't I? I've absolutely done it. The commentator's curse, the 666.
We're going to see it. We're going to see it right here in the
It was on the exit of the second Degner. This is such a common place to pick up a drive-through track limit warning, and there we go. George Boothby, the 666. On a day where he needed things to go right for him, on a day where he just didn't really have the typical George Boothby performance that we're used to seeing. Things not going his way, he's got to drive through at this point in time, and what already had been made a very, very difficult task is now almost impossible.
Well, it's pouring salt in a wound for George Boothby. His day did not start out with the most promise, but he made a fighting chance. And at certain times in this race, he led the championship again. He was fighting tooth and nail. Well, folks, it's all coming undone here in the final 20-some minutes of this race, but Boothby is not going to give up. George is going to continue. He's going to get a finish for Side Max and the 666. And just an update up front, Philippe Simard still very quick indeed, faster than Jardier. Jardier has now lost about a second to him, but that's not what I'm paying attention to, Ryan. Joe McCauley is running Jardier down, and I've been doing the maths.
Oh, here
Joe
we go.
Joe McCauley's going to get there right about the time it starts raining.
Well, that's going to spice things up. In the meantime, Philippe Simard just doing Philippe Simard things at this point in time. We haven't said that so far this season, or that often this season, but Philippe Simard, 1:59.6. New fastest lap of the race. The first driver into the 59s He was into the 59s for qualifying, Jesse. It was a 59.9 that got him pole position, and he's just gone and beaten that in the race with a 59.6. And I have to say, he's been class of the field so far today.
Yeah, he has. I mean, keep in mind he's doing 59s. The track isn't optimum, and some of you may be wondering how's he possibly faster in the race than qualifying? Well, qualifying was sub-optimum track, and we're getting more towards an optimum track, though it isn't going to last very long. Some dirt in front of these two drivers from somebody in front. Was that Pivot, perhaps? Maybe going through the dirt up there in front of them. But still Vasson and Jordan Grant Smith. We haven't talked about hashtag ban Jordy for a while, but they're red and white. Porsche going very well, trying to keep still Vasson behind him. Battle for the top 5. Well, I don't know how we're ever going to top this race. It's been pretty fantastic, and we still have 19 minutes left to go as still Vasson thinks about going down to the inside of turn number 1. He's going to do that, and an absolute treat of a move gets it done before the corner. Jordan Grant Smith back to 6. Go ahead and count still Vasson up inside the top 5.
Now Jordan Grant Smith overtaken by Milton Steele Vasson. That puts him down to 6th place and the Aston Martin up into 5th. Meanwhile, here is your leader, fastest man on track at this point in time, and doing an absolutely fantastic job. Philippe Simard, I mean, before we went to Donington Park, this man had no podiums, no fast laps, no pole positions, no wins.
Yes.
Go into Donington, picks up his first podium, has a good finish in the second race as well, and now comes to Suzuka and is absolutely dominating out here today. And he's going to end the season in style, assuming he keeps it clean for the next 18 minutes, of course. Fabian Piffet, by the way, has picked up a 15-second time penalty. That is for collision with the 666.
That's Boothby.
Yeah, that is...
When did that happen?
That's lap 24, turn 12. That's the incident we saw in the hairpin where the Lexus ran into the back of George Boothby. We're going to get replay of it here, in fact.
Okay. Well, here's the interesting thing. They gave him a 15-second penalty, but it's only written as a 5 on the paper.
Oh, that's incorrect. They've just cleared it. So that will be rescinded.
There
and then
we
back
go.
up at 5 seconds. There we
Excellent.
go. So that was a slight mistake there.
Steward's on it.
But there we go. So 5-second penalty for unnecessary contact into the hairpin. And I think that's fair considering the damage it probably gave George Boothby. But Joe McCauley, by the way, I think this is what you were maybe alluding to, Jesse. He's caught Jardier a bit quicker than I think both of us thought.
Yeah, so why my math was based on was he was catching him at a tenth or to a quarter of a second a lap. Well, the last 2 laps, I've been looking at the times. Jardier's times have plummeted. I don't know if he's struggling with the car. I haven't actually seen him drive. I've just been looking up the times. But McCauley has done anything but. He's been absolutely on it. McCauley wants second place back.
Definitely does. Wants to end the season on a high in the NSX. And what a way to do so. He's already got a win so far this season in this car. Had the chance to win at Donington as well, remember, but then unfortunately made a mistake in the closing stages of the race, threw that chance away. But Joe McCauley, sitting in 3rd at this point in time, wants to finish 2nd. And Jardier doesn't really have to fight this, does he? He can afford to let Joe McCauley go. He doesn't have to say, look, no, I need 2nd place. He doesn't need 2nd place. He doesn't need a podium at this stage in the race. If he doesn't feel like fighting Joe McCauley, he doesn't have to. But what's your favorite saying,
I love the
Jesse?
butt. Well, racing drivers are racing drivers, and when the visor goes down, they don't care. We all come from different places and we all speak different languages, but very little difference between drivers. They all want to beat each other and they're very competitive. And if Jardier was going to fight this, it would make more sense than normally you'd think, considering he doesn't really have much to lose. Because even if he does get into something, he knows Boothby's outside the top 10. It's sort of irrelevant at this time. But also, if you get enough damage, you could put yourself in the danger zone, so to speak. So what do? Jardier, a very sensible man. I would assume he would eventually, if Macaulay got the position on him, would give that up. But of course, he's not going to lay over his yards. That's not his style. He is going to make Joe Macaulay earn this. And I love this here. Stewie's got us covered on the cameras today. Excellent camera work as always. In this, the rear diffuser cam of Jardier looking back at Macaulay's purple and black NSX. Always does well here at Suzuka, does the NSXs. And this is all that's in it for second place.
I did say earlier on that we didn't have a particularly large grid, but you only need 2 cars to make a race, and, well, what a race we've had so far this evening. Over an hour gone, and just under 15 to go, and under 10 minutes away from the rain arriving here at Suzuka. And it's going to be so interesting to see how all of this plays into effect. You can see Fabian Piffet behind these two. At this point in time, he has a 5-second penalty, so realistically, he's not really going to be concerning these two. He won't be losing any places either, because 6.4 seconds back is Milton Steele-Vassant and Jordan Grant-Smith, and Steele-Vassant is having to pull out all the stops at this point in time to defend from the Porsche of hashtag #BanJordy.
These two have been racing respectfully and just hard but respectful for the whole second half of this race, and I think hats off to them. They have been doing an excellent job, and Joe Macaulay is going to spin in 130R and going to ruin his chance at a podium position here, hard into the wall. Joe Macaulay.
Joe Macaulay and making self-inflicted incident.
Just had no arrow that close, Ryan.
Name a more iconic duo in this championship so far. He's done it at Bathurst, he's done it at Kyalami, he's done it at Donington Park, now he's done it at Suzuka as well, and that has put Fabian Piffet onto the podium for the final round of this championship. Fabian Piffet will say thank you very much. He's gaining time from the cars behind. Realistically, they're not going to be concerning him at this stage in the race, but Joe Macaulay, just pushing too hard, and the consequences for everyone to see. That car needs to be repaired. George Boothby will get himself back into the top 10, and
silver linings,
that'll be little solace for him tonight, but it won't be his worst performance of the season, I suppose. That's the one positive you can take from tonight.
Oh, what even is this race? It has had a little bit of everything, and Ryan, you just get so close to the car behind you. You're going so fast. You take the air off of your car, and nothing's gluing you to the racetrack in a turn like that. It's fairly flat 130R, and you just go around. You saw the rear just leave him, and Jordan Grant-Smith! Jordan Grant-Smith on a curb, nearly losing it himself, saves it. Excellent job. Hashtag save Jordy right there, getting it done. As meanwhile, still Vassant nearly going wide here. And he gets it back together, and the two will remain inseparable. Now, these two have been racing so well and so respectfully that I imagine that they're still on each other's Christmas card list at this point. Oh, look at this.
Definitely so, as Fabian Piffet having a look on the inside of Jardier. He's got a 5-second penalty, but that's not going to stop the Lexus of saying, I want to overtake you on track. I want to prove that I can be better than you on track here today. And Fabian Piffet, at this point in time, his Lexus putting the pressure on Jardier. Jardier is going to go defensive. He doesn't need to defend from this. Fabian Piffet has already been involved in an incident here today of which he was judged to be guilty. What a twist this would be if Fabian Piffet, not trying to put the curse on Fabian Piffet at all, got nothing against him, but imagine the scenes if the Lexus turned the Mercedes around, as Stewie, our broadcaster, no one could hear that coming across the microphone going, kill him.
I don't know if I would have acknowledged that. Stewie's having a ball. We're all having a ball. It's been a fantastic race. We, of course, wish no ill will towards any driver, but it's just humorous to us. That is pretty much, though, how this day has gone. And Ryan, allow me to throw an additional wrench into the gears. If Fabian Piffet gets around Jardier and gets out a 5-second lead, which, by the way, he caught up more than 5 seconds to get to this point in about as much time as you have left in this race. If he can get around him, he could really finish second place if he got away from Jardier.
It's entirely possible. It's going to be difficult because to do that, he needs to first get past the number 39. And, well, let's face it, overtaking Jardier is probably one of the hardest things to do in ACC. But I'll tell you what, it probably feels amazing to get it done. And here comes Fabian Piffet. Comes into 130R, following through. He's going to try and keep that car pinned as much as he can. He has to stay as close to Jardier as possible as they come.
Look how tight they are.
Yeah, through the chicane and now the final corner. Can the Lexus use that straight line speed it has? Can he use the slipstream that he has, close in on the Mercedes and have a look into the first corner? Fabian Piffet gonna have a look, but thinks better of it, closes up on Jardier, but enough.
Oh. Well, ladies and gentlemen at home, I am withdrawn into my seat, as Ryan Gill will be able to tell you. This is getting very, very close indeed, just after 11 a.m. here in sim time. It is going to rain here in less than 10 minutes time. It is going to be a light rain. We don't expect it to change much, but you never can be too sure. As a rear diffuser cam, getting a full look at Jardier as Piffet going to the inside. That will become the outside. There's going to be contact in the Degners, and Piffet goes and gets back on track. The second Degner, and all comes back as one, and no issues. Just minor contact there, getting into Degner 1. And we're going to see a replay. Ryan Gill, thoughts?
Thoughts, if anyone could see what's happening in the commentary box, they'll just realize that you and I jumped out of our seat. We've done that more than once here today. My word, Fabian Piffet, he's pushing like a madman at this point in time. He desperately wants to get ahead of Jardier. And even if it doesn't mean anything come the end of the race, even if he does get pushed back behind him because of the 5-second penalty, he wants the merit. He wants to know that he beat Jardier on track today. That's what he wants. He wants to prove it to the world here on the live stream. But my word, Jardier and Piffet, this is... Ooh, is the Lexus going slightly wide? The Merc going wide as well, both of them. Slight mistakes there into 130R. No catastrophic consequences. But we've got 7 minutes left of this, and the rain has arrived.
Well, there you have it. The rain is coming down. It's a little sooner than we thought. We thought at 5 minutes, but it's at 7 minutes. And that, you never know, folks. That's 2 extra minutes of rain. That might change it dramatically. Pay attention to the top right of your screen to the track condition. It's fast. Before it goes wet, it will go greasy. And if it does go greasy before the end of this race, what unintended effect will that have on all of the battles, including this one for the second place position? Fabian Piffet, why is he fighting so hard for second place so late in the race with a 5-second penalty? Well, we all reckon Fabian Piffet, if he gets in front, could potentially open up that 5-second gap. But if he has any hope of doing that, he has to get around Jardier quick, and I mean on this lap, and he knows that, but racing very respectfully. The bump, I think, is just because of the way the Degners are. I don't think there was any real ill or intent there. Both cars did continue in the same, and in the hairpin, very close indeed. That's what Piffet's trying to do, Ryan. He's trying to get as close as he possibly can, exiting the corner so he can maybe late brake into the next turn and get him.
The rain very, very light here at this point in time. I think it's only on one particular part of the circuit. As I can start to see it coming down on my screen right now. Our producer having a little bit of a flick through the cameras here. We're on board with Joe McCauley. In fact, he has got his windscreen wipers on. So he's prepared. Joe McCauley has said, all right, look, I'm used to the rain here in Scotland. I'm going to get the wipers on early. And he's all ready for this action. He's ready for the downpour if it were to happen in the next 5 minutes. Here comes Fabian Piffet! Oh, not
Oh,
quite
it's so
able.
respectful. It's so respectful, these two racing each other, but he's going to send it in here. This is what I was talking about, getting as close as you can. Send it in, young man. And very nearly got it to stick, but he had to brake and turn so hard that he couldn't quite get it to go. And even if he can at this point make this stick, it won't matter for him. He is going to continue and try and pass him. Ryan, like you pointed out, Piffet is going to try and beat Jardier here. Jardier doing a masterclass of defensive driving, and it has been the same way it started, it shall end in this championship, as it has been hard fought, tooth and nail, and most of the time respectfully driven by several, if not all, of the drivers. The rain coming down the track, perhaps getting a little bit slick there. Fabian Piffet, Fordzilla 195, getting a little sideways.
We're getting really close on the back of Jardier as well. This is not the battle we thought we would have for the season finale, for the final few minutes of the race. But this is the battle we have, and here comes Fabian Piffet into the hairpin. And he's gonna get the move done as well. 4 minutes to go. The Lexus passed the Mercedes. And Jardier's not going to let this one go easily, though. He's going to have to look on the outside of Spoon Curve. There's no way that Fabian Piffet's going to allow to have this.
Crossover move!
Back. And Fabian Piffet's wide. The Mercedes is back through, and we're back to square one.
A couple of turns, a couple of good passes, and all of a sudden we're back to where we were. I knew what Jardier was going to do. He backed out of it early. He knew that there was no way Piffet was going to be able to do it, but the center of the track, it's going to be a touch going to 130R, a touch between the two of them, a defensive move by Jardier. Out wide is Piffet, and Jardier retains the spot for one more lap. At this time, Piffet has to assume that he's not going to get second due to the penalty, but he doesn't care.
Meanwhile, Philippe Samard is out in the lead. He has no idea of the battle going on behind him at this point in time. He's just cruising out there in his Aston Martin, enjoying himself at this stage. But Fabian Piffet, he knows that the chance for second place on pace is not there at this point in time, Jesse, but he still wants to finish ahead of Jardier. He still wants to overtake him, to say, look, I've done it. I can do it. I can finish ahead of him. If I hadn't got that 5-second penalty, I would have had second place. And as the rain continues to fall around here, the track currently fast. We have 2.5 minutes remaining. And, well, this is going to be the penultimate lap of the race. Philippe Samard will go past the line to start the final lap of the race the next time by. So Fabian Piffet, you've got a lap and a half to get this move done.
Well, don't, folks at home, don't think that either one of these drivers are driving frustrated. They're driving at the top level of RCI competition here today, and they are both on the top of their game, and they are loving this. That both of them. Jardier loves to race people. Piffet loves to race, and he's trying to prove that he can beat him here today. And these are the days that you're happy to be in motorsport. And these two are going to go to the line neck and neck. And they have had several close calls, a little bit of minor contact, and several changes in position between the two of them. This is what it means to sim race. This is what it means to be a sort of a pro driver in this case, as these two are leaving it all on the line, as Joe McCauley's day has went from bad to worse again. And, well, 130R2 Electric Boogaloo, Joe McCauley back into the barrier again. And that is the tale of the second half of his race, as, well, he has decided to come to pit lane. 1 lap to go. Final lap. Philippe Samard is on, and so are these two fighting for the second step of the podium, though it would be nearly impossible for Piffet to take the second place, even if he passes Jardier. That's not what this is about. This is about proving you can do it.
Yeah, this is just about who finishes ahead on track. This is about personal pride more than anything, and these two have a lot of pride in their craftsmanship. And here we go. Jardier has to defend now the final lap of the race. What a way to end the season. It is a shame that George Boothby couldn't be a part of this battle. He's down in 10th place. He's probably accepted at this point in time that he lost the chance to win the championship here today. It was all, the signs were all there realistically, the poor qualifying performance. And, well, the race didn't get much better from there. But here we go then. Final half of the lap. Fabian Piffer, is he going to go for a move? These two battling for the last 20 minutes of the race so far. It's been absolutely incredible to watch. And here we go then, on to the back straight. Does the Lexus have the opportunity to close in on the Mercedes? Will Fabian Piffer go for one more dive down towards the Casio Triangle chicane? Will Jardier be able to hold a defensive line? Philippe Samard, he's going to cross the line. He will win the final race.
Finally, Philippe Samard.
Win.
One more shot, Ryan.
Here comes Fabian Piffer. This is it, down towards the inside.
Oh, Fabian Piffert's going for a spin. He had to try it. Fabian Piffett at the final turn had to try it. He's going to lose more spots. There's still Vassett and Jordan Grant Smith. More positions lost. The last second move in the triangle has not come off for Piffett. He will not finish on the podium after all. And all of a sudden, still Vasson is your third place finisher. Jardier second, Grant Smith fourth, Piffett fifth. Valentin Berrier will come home sixth after a struggle of a season. Karsten in seventh place up big. Zhao Kavaka will finish eighth. And Simon Keeble ninth. And George Boothby, what a race it was. He had everything to do and very nearly pulled it off. One mistake and it went out the window, but a top 10, and you have to say, valiant effort by Boothby, staying in it and staying alive. Excellent championship, young man. Uri Svinček is going to come across the line 11th. Willamont, then Tavrayan Azevedo 14th. We lost two cars in the race today. One of them was Cody Pride, and I think the other one was Macaulay, correct?
That is correct. We lost Cody Pride earlier on, and then Joe Macaulay towards the end after putting the NSX in the wall for the second time at 130R in the same race. Well, what a way to end the season. I'm sure Fabian Piffer is kicking himself at this point in time. Lost third place on the final, well, not quite the final corner, but on the final couple of corners right at the end of the season. But Jardier, he is going to be the GT3 World Championship champion right at the end here. And, well, it has been an incredible season. And quite honestly, I mean, Jesse, is there a way? Is it possible to sum up this season in one sentence?
Yes. Fantastic. One word. From the drop of the green flag to now, it has been impressive. Completely unpredictable, lovely racing by some lovely teams and drivers. It has been absolutely fantastic and came down to the wire. 20 minutes to go, and then late race drama as there normally is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have our Friday GT3 World Champion here with us today. Congratulations, Jardier, on being the GT3 World Champion here at RCI.
Let's go, boys! Thank you! Awesome. Absolutely awesome, guys. Thank you for having me.
Well, Jardier, it was back and forth. It was up and down. It was all sorts of things for you today. You came in, you had a job to do. George Boothby did do the deed. He had you at certain points in the race. How did you do it?
Big balls. No,
I love the James Hunt quote.
Oh, and for our Spanish-speaking audience, huge huevos. Jardier, I gotta say, excellent defense, but it all was between you and Boothby. Were you aware of the points as you ran throughout the race today?
Oh man, like I knew for this track that I can't be more lucky than having this track for the last race of the championship, because this car is super strong on this track. So I mean, I wasn't strong as Simari, who was like unbelievably amazing today. But I knew I can probably fight or hold on with George today, and it's gonna be all about his finishing position and my finishing position. And the whole race, I was like a bit struggling. I made a huge mistake at the beginning. I don't know, I had a brain fart, and instead of lowering PSI, I increased the PSI. So I had 28.5 PSI for the first stint, which was absolutely horrible to drive. And then I decided to go for the undercut, with the pit, and actually it worked really good because I got the position from Joe, and I was quite far ahead of everyone, and I was just trying to stay on the track and hot lap, and I was basically just watching what's happening behind and what's gonna happen behind. And I heard that George got like damage from other driver, and then he spun probably because of that as well. So I was quite sad because I really wanted to fight on the track. I really wanted to us have like a good fight together, as we had, for example, Donington. And first I was like, okay, George is not here, so I can imagine that Joe McCauley is George, so I'm gonna fight with him as he is George. And he spun behind me, and then I was like, okay, never mind. Let's use the Lexus driver as a as a George fighter, And we fight. It was quite interesting, quite elbow fighting right there, but it was good. I enjoyed that in the end. It was good.
Well, I mean, you put on a show today. I mean, no words with the battles that we saw today, especially the one with Piffet towards the end. And well, we do have the runner-up for the championship joining us as well, George. I mean, welcome into the commentary box. I will say first of all, before we get into tonight's race, congratulations on your championship win on Monday. For the British GT Championship. Fantastic, fantastic style to cap out that championship. But obviously wasn't really in your favor here today. You looked like you were struggling in qualifying.
Yeah, I dropped the ball a bit, whether it be pressure or what. But yeah, in qualifying, I can't remember what happened. I just invalidated a few laps, and then I managed to get one lap, but I had to make sure it was valid. You know what I mean? And then yeah, in the race, I had a good start, but I made mistake number one. I started the race with my ABS turned off, so
Oh my god!
I tapped one of the other Ferraris at some point, but thankfully he didn't go off. But that was a bit nerve-wracking. And then yeah, I feel like I just didn't have the pace today. I just didn't really have the pace. So tried a strategy to pit early, but Jardia was obviously he knew what was going on. You know what I mean? Like so he pitted as well the next lap, and then he just pulled away. He just had the pace. I couldn't keep up. I had a tangle with the Lexus driver, which gave me a bit of damage, and then my car was just it wasn't too nice to drive after that. I made a few mistakes, and then got a drive through, and just didn't go well at the end. So, but P2 is still really, really good. I'm really happy with that. And say congrats to Jardia. These past few rounds, he's just been absolutely on the ball, making the most of everything. So definitely deserves it. Definitely deserves it.
Well, I
Thank you, sir.
mean,
I'm glad we are sharing the championship. You got a Monday, I got Friday. Okay, that's fine.
I like it. See, this is what RCI is about: friendship.
It was
Guys,
all the plan. It was all the plan.
There it is. I'm going to throw you back to Ryan, but I'm just going to lay a stat on you because you may not be aware of this. I counted no less than 5 championship lead changes in that 75-minute race between the two
Wow.
of you. Absolutely amazing job. And neither one of you have anything to be ashamed about. We saw today you left it all on the table. Congratulations to both of you, Ryan.
yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
You both put on a show today. It was half a point in George's favor at one point, half a point in Jardia's favor at one point, 2.5 points in George's favor at another stage. It was absolutely mental to watch. And obviously, like you say, it's a shame we couldn't see it come down, right to the wire. But, like Jesse said, you guys put it all out there tonight. And I mean, I don't think I mind saying that this is definitely one of the best races that I've had the pleasure of commentating on, and that we've had the pleasure of putting up on our channel. So, you know, massive hats off to you guys. This championship has been phenomenal, and of course, well, we hope to see you guys back for the next Friday series as well, and you know, hopefully do it all over again. Jardia, I mean, do you think you can defend your title?
I don't know if I could defend it, but I've definitely won the Monday title from George.
I like that.
All right,
Well-
let's trade again. How's that sound?
Yeah. Like you can have the Friday if you promise I get the Monday. You know, I'm more like a Monday person. You know.
All right. It's a little too chummy in here now.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys, for joining us for the final, you know, final race of the season. Of course,
Oh,
thank you
dear.
for putting on a
Indeed.
fantastic show here this evening, and of course, good luck to both of you tomorrow. We know that both of you are going to be competing in the SimGrid World Cup at Bathurst as well. And of course, just want to wish you guys good luck in that massive esports event. If anyone's unaware of it, you've probably been living under a rock for the last half a year. But incredible series that SimGrid are putting on, and you know, good luck to you guys in that. I'm sure loads of people that are here tonight are going to be watching that and cheering you guys on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Well, there we go then. That was Jardia and George Boothby, the championship winner and the runner-up here this evening for the championship. And well, Jesse, it's been an absolute pleasure to cast this championship with you over the course of 9 weeks. And well, we're going to be back to do it all again. Or well, you're going to be back to do it all again. More specifically, I'll be dipping out of the com box for Fridays temporarily. Mike Jones will be stepping in my place, Jesse.
Yeah, you will. And it's going to be fantastic. Ryan, can I just say, absolute honor and a privilege to share the box with you every single time. It had been a very long time since Ryan and I had done a championship together, 1 year to be exact. And well, to say that I admire Ryan is a understatement, and absolute honor. And yes, we will be back in just a little bit of time for the next Friday championship. We'll see if Jardier can indeed repeat as champion. Mike Jones will be in the booth with me and help me co-commentate the series. And folks, it has been an absolute pleasure to bring you these races this season. I think the format was fantastic. The racing was electric, and the finish, well, if you wrote it, they just wouldn't believe it.
So in all of that, you may have forgotten that we do have other races going on around on the weekly.
What?
Yeah, we do. We definitely have some other races. In fact, Jesse Lee, believe it or not, you'll be commentating on one of them tomorrow evening. And
yes, we will.
That's gonna be the Night Owl Season 3 Round 5 race. That is going to be at Misano. And well, an interesting championship continues in Night Owl. Obviously, that's for our late European and American drivers and audiences. And of course, you can catch all of that from around about 11 p.m. UK time, I believe it is, that it's lights out for the race. Of course, nothing happening on Monday. The Monday Championship wrapped up this week, which means, of course, we're on a little bit of a hiatus, but pre-qualifying for the Porsche Masters Cup is coming soon. Sign-ups are open right now. Go onto the RCI website, get yourself signed up. Porsche GT3s, Cup cars, and GT4s all on the same track. It's going to be so exciting. Then on Tuesday, we don't really have anything going on Tuesdays as of this point in time. We could see some race room content come RCI's way on Tuesdays in the near future. We'll keep you up to date on that one as it happens. And then the Diamond Drive Cup, well, it finishes, doesn't it, Jesse? Next week with a race at Spa-Francorchamps. The Diamond Drive Cup, been an incredible championship, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you a season 2 of that series. It's all a bit up in the air at this point in time, but we'll do our best to bring you a second season, and hopefully it will be broadcasted as well. Then on Thursday, well, the GT4 Championship is wrapped up. Nothing more to do at that point in time. And of course, we're on a bit of a hiatus on Fridays as well now, with the championship concluding. But on Sunday, we have a bit of a special race. If you thought to yourself, well, it's been a bit chaotic with the endurance races lately. I mean, we had the World Tour 3 hours of Donington. Then we had the 12 hours of Bathurst, courtesy of, champion tonight, Jardier, and Jimmy Broadbent. You'd be thinking to yourself, my word, I've finally got a Sunday off from RCI Racing. No, you don't. Because on Sunday, it's the 6 hours of Alton Park GT4. And that's going to be an incredibly exciting one. High chance of rain for that one. So going to be interesting for sure. And only GT4 cars, 6 hours at Alton Park. And my word, it's going to be entertaining, Jesse, that's for sure. But that's it from us for this evening. You've got plenty of stuff to come up over the next 7 days. And of course, we look forward to seeing you in the next Friday Championship broadcast. It will be Jesse Lee and Mike Jones bringing you all of the action. So from myself and Jesse here in the commentary box here tonight, Stewie behind the cameras has done a fantastic job, as he has done for most of this season. And then, of course, all of our stewards here tonight that haven't had too much work to do, but of course, they still do a fantastic job. And everyone else here that makes RCI possible, our sponsors and partners as well. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.